Welcome back to the Hoops Temple Pod. You all know me, Nathan Schwartz. Joining me from Sacramento, Aaron Schroeder.
Good to be here, Nate.
Good to have you. We're back. We are back ranking players. We have ranked out by position 1 through 75. We are now ready to continue from 201 to 225. How are you feeling?
I feel great. I think 201 to 225 is a good group of guys. It gets messy. It'll get messy in a couple episodes, but it's just a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun having to sift through these guys again. It's been a long time since we've sat down and ranked some guys together.
I think the difference between the 201st player and maybe even like 250, probably actually even like 150 to 250, there will be less difference. And like people will have less of an argument between 150 and 250 than they would have between like Kobe Bryant and
Hakeem.
Kevin Durant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those guys that are like top 10 to top 15 guys. Like,
I see the
that's.
Kobe Durant as a good comparison. Yeah, I mean, I think you could look at some of these lists and be like, that's just way off. And it's like, yeah,
Mhm.
maybe it's 20 places off, and maybe that's kind of the range you're working with. But I feel pretty good. Do you want
Yep.
to get us started with your first guy? I've been dying to know. I feel like I've shown
Oh,
my cards over the months, um, and I really have to know.
so you've shown your cards a lot. You've texted me about this a lot. And so I came, I know where you're
Wait,
going with this,
we
and
should
I'm
give the nominations first.
sure. All right. Top nominations by position. For our centers, we have Jermaine O'Neal. For our shooting guards, we have Rolando Blackman. For our point guards, we have Kemba Walker. For our small forwards, we have Dale Ellis. And for our power forwards, we have Derek Coleman.
I think it's the best system ever for anything. The way we do this. In terms of ranking all the players out 1 through 75 by position, and then it's super easy. You have a field of 5 to pick from, and it makes a list like this possible.
Literally, the way I do this when I'm just working by myself, now that we have the like 75 position rankings going, I'll pull up those five guys, the first five, and I decide between them, and I just close that basketball reference page, and I open up the next one, and then I'll like resort the order. But like I sort the first five best to worst, and then I'll pull up that guy. And I'm like, all right, where are you going? Are you the top of the list? You're not. Okay, let's eliminate that guy. Let's pull up the next guy in his position. And it just keeps going. So I've got my notes. I've got my extensive basketball bookshelf, and I've got the stats and numbers. And where I'm ultimately going with this is the same guy that you probably have, Jermaine O'Neal.
Let's go. Jermaine O'Neal. I really was hoping we didn't have to fight about this. Um, O'Neal, a 6-time All Star, 3-time All NBA player, a consistent 20 and 10 presence in the 2000s. And just to note, like if you were fortunate enough to hear our centers ranking list, we probably mentioned that Jermaine O'Neal shoots like 42% in the playoffs while he's an All Star. But looking a little bit deeper, those playoff series, they're ending like 80 to 78, and both teams are shooting like 39%. And so Jermaine is actually still the most efficient player on the Pacers. It's just a rock fight era, and the Pacers had the most rocks. They were one of the most kind of slow it down slugfest teams, and so the offense just sold out for everybody. But I think O'Neal was super effective, and I think he should be 201.
I think one of the things that really kind of got me for him was in 2004, he was third place in MVP voting. And it's basically the Garnett runaway year. And then it's like him and Duncan picking up the scraps for second and third third place votes. But he's right there with Duncan. And that Pacers team in the year 2005 was really supposed to be something. And it was him and it was Ron Artest. And then there was some punches thrown. And like that completely derailed what was a title team and what was, one of the best teams in the league and what they could have been. And like you replay this guy's career, there's a chance that he's competing for titles in his prime as the number one figure. We don't live in that reality, but I think that's important to at least note that that is where he was at as a player. And then the Oreo quote just always gets me every time.
I love the Oreo quote. Do you have it on hand, or do you want me
I
to summarize it?
I have it, and
Go ahead.
I've got the full extended Oreo quote. So sorry, you're gonna get the whole thing, but listen, I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna start with Miami. They want me to re-sign. I knew that Braun and them all was coming, and it's the realest thing I could tell you. You know they got that 8% body fat. That shit's serious for a big guy that's heavy lifting. I remember going down to the pantry at night, looking at the Oreos looking at me, and I couldn't. Bruh, I'm in a full battle daily on what I ate. I was just like, bruh, I'm 30 plus years old. I can't go through this right now. I'm too old to be having the debate whether to have an Oreo or not. So that's why I left Miami.
It's a great quote. I understand, like, and I believe that Jermaine O'Neal is a competitor, and I understand he's not Andrew Bynum or he's not Oliver Miller
Yeah.
or something, but yeah, I get that. Not everyone's cut out for the Miami lifestyle, and I think the big knock and like Jermaine to be a six-time All-Star and a three-time NBA player kind of is an outlier in terms of this area. Like that's a lot of All-Star appearances. Um, Guys are with way less than that are going to be higher than him. Just what he's bringing is he's a good rebounder, he's a good defensive player, but the 20 points per game, like he's not he just really isn't a prolific scorer. Like he's a pretty good scorer. He's a solid
Hmm.
scoring center, but his efficiency just isn't great. And so I don't think he's the traditional like 20 and 10 with like two blocks kind of guy. It's not exactly that kind of it's 10. The 10 is there, but the 20 is a little iffy.
Yeah. And the other thing, like he probably would have a few more All NBAs if he wasn't suspended in '05, if he wasn't injured in '06. '07 is kind of his last really good year at that level. But there were some health things there as well that kind of held him back.
But he's
So with
locked in.
Jermaine, he's locked in. And with Jermaine O'Neal off the board, our next highest center is the one, the only, the man who got the Kings to the playoffs, Domantas Sabonis.
Let's go. Just gets better and better.
And you brought this up pre-pod, but we ranked out our point guards, which I think we did a quite a while ago. I forget if it was the offseason or the end of the regular season. We did not include other fellow King to get them to the playoffs. De'Aaron Fox. We also didn't include Shai Gilgeous Alexander. We're saving them next offseason. We'll reevaluate all modern players that were considered our top 75 selection and kind of place them because at this point if we place Shea at 201, that's probably too low. If we placed Fox at 202, also probably too low. I feel okay placing uh, Sabonis here in this range right now.
Yeah.
That doesn't feel like it's already out of date.
No, I agree with that. I mean, Sabonis is what he's done is kind of is a little more baked, where those guys are like just um got enough things going for them to be considered for this. I guess Sabonis the same way, but it makes sense to us, and that's how it's going to be.
Yeah,
We'll relook at all this in the off season, and Sabonis is up there. I mean, when you're out at this level, to get to be like I think he was 7th in MVP voting, which is whatever, but it's 19, 12, and 7 and get the Kings to 48 wins. And that's just that's an impressive thing to be that kind of engine, and you really aren't going to find that much of that out here. And so got to hold on to stuff like that.
absolutely. Do you have a nomination for 202?
I do. Um it is Demonis Sabonis. I think he should be in.
Really?
Um
This high
I,
though?
I think so, and obviously I'm very flexible, but I just think I think his season last year, um, is better than almost anything else you're gonna find so far. It was just really high level basketball, running like the best offense in the league, and he got stomped on. He broke his thumb or tore some ligament in his thumb, and then was asked to deal with Draymond and Kevon Looney in the playoffs, and it didn't go super well. But it's not like his numbers in the come playoff time were
Yeah.
horrendous. I mean, like I think people act like he was like the worst player on the court. He still has 16 points, 10 boards, and 5 assists. Really, our 3-point shooters got cold, and that's kind of where our offense was coming from. Do you think it's a little too early for him?
I think it's a tad bit too early, but I wanted to get back to that playoff point because I feel like he gets shit on way too much for how he played in the playoffs. if the Warriors weren't playing Kevon Looney, he was eating them up on the boards. Like they could not go death lineup with just Draymond out there. Just defensively, they were not able to get the boards without Looney out there. And like Looney had a fantastic series, is from a rebounding perspective, but like Sabonis caused some issues for a playoff ready team, for a playoff secure team who had good guys to go up against him. So yeah, he didn't play fantastic. Yes, if he had played better, they probably won. Also, if Fox didn't get hurt, they probably won. Really, there's a lot of factors that would change the Kings' win.
Yeah.
I was going to nominate Ronaldo Blackman next.
He was my next guy, and I honestly considered switching it mid-sentence. So I'm very comfortable with that.
So Ronaldo's a little bit tricky to kind of know what his value is because he's not always on the best of Dallas Mavericks teams. Like they get to the playoffs, but he's kind of a more of a number two or a number three there. And in those circumstances, like I do always kind of think about Jordan Poole or like Kyle Kuzma. Hey, if you were
Mhm.
on your own team, are you quite as good? Maybe, maybe not. But he was a very proficient scorer playing next to Adrian Dantley for those Dallas teams. Four-time All-Star
Mark Aguirre?
Ronaldo Blackman.
Yeah, and then he played with he played with McGuire.
McGuire, not Dantley.
Yeah.
That's they get traded for each other. They're
Yeah, they did. No, it's the same basketball wavelength. I feel like these podcasts are just like basketball mad libs and we try to fill in with the right players, but it's like sometimes it's like well, I made the comment on a video a week ago where I could have sworn I made a Detlef Shrimp video, but it was actually a
mm.
Sam Perkins video because they just play with each other the entire time.
I did you see the thing about Dirk getting mistaken for Rick Smits?
Yeah. Yeah, I did see
In
that.
in my head, it was Rafe LaFrentz that he got mistaken for. And then someone asked me to make a Rafe LaFrentz video, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that's the guy that Dirk just got mistaken for." And I was like, "Oh no, that's a different Gumby tall white guy." And so
Mhm.
yeah, all relative same era. But yeah, so Blackman's playing in for the Mavericks. They make the Western Conference Finals. What was it,
Mhm.
88 or 87?
88.
Goes to game seven. But I don't know, I think there was a very high level of play here. Why'd you have him this high?
Thought I liked the four all-star teams in terms of an accolade perspective, but just the scoring production was consistent. I mean, almost 1,000 games and 18 points per game on teams that did matter. I mean, the Mavs were good, and they had the approach of just kind of a collection of talent. They didn't really have they didn't have the
Hmm.
superstars of the world, but it was him and Aguirre and Sam Perkins. Even I mean, Detlef Schrempf is there at some point. We just talked about that. Derek Harper as well, and they were good enough to win 50+ games. And I think I'm pretty confident that Blackman was the second best player on those teams behind Aguirre. Um, and his he was consistent come playoff time, and his good 20 points a night get to the conference finals, and was rewarded with all his All Star appearances. And yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I did mark down that he only led the team in win shares twice. And one of those years, the team went 22 and 62. But it is a full career. I will probably end up having Sabonis over him later when we
hmm
rank the guys over the summer. But I just think for right now, I like the nod to longevity and what he was able to accomplish. I also have kind of a run on shooting guards, just to give you a heads up.
okay, I think I do too. Kind of. Um, I liked, yeah, no, I think Blackman's the right pick. I mean, he's a good example of what kind of player we're talking about out in this area, where you can have a bunch of guys that are about as good as him, and that's a really good team, and like
Hmm.
could be in title conversations. And then he's a bit, I mean, he's like 32, but he's quite a bit older when it kind of starts to fall apart. When those guys are gone, it's like kind of just him, like him and Derek Harper. It's a really, really bad team. But doesn't tell me that Blackman's bad. It's just that's what we're kind of working with.
I'm trying to think what the modern equivalent is. Because like I've a lot of these teams we can kind of like think back to being like the 2016 Hawks, where hey,
Mm.
it's a collection of talent that's better than the sum of their parts. But I don't know that we necessarily have a team like that right now in the league.
Um, I mean, this is. I mean, we're in such a different era in terms of I talked to you about this with the heliocentric offenses,
Hmm.
where more than ever teams have a guy with like 30% usage rate. Like in the 80s, there was at times one guy, like one person, it was like Adrian Dantley and so like Dominique Wilkins or George Gervin that had a usage rate above 30%. And now over half the league has a player that they're utilizing like that,
Yeah.
just funneling their entire offense through. And so it's tough to be like, well, who's the third guy? There is no third guys anymore. They're the guys. Like there's I think that the middle class of NBA players is just kind of gone.
Well, and to add to that, you've got the David Sternification where whether or not you have a star, you want to market your team like you have a star. So, like, hey, we could say Boston. Maybe Boston would be a little bit better if Tatum was more one of the guys and they were just this awesome 5-man unit. But Tatum will always be marketed as the like absolute star. And maybe that's not the best example, but like Orlando, they're going to push Paolo as like their guy when really they have this collection of really nice talent or, you know. So we might just be in too much of a different era. But if we lock in Blackman at 202, that brings up Alvin Robertson, 4-time All Star, 3 times in steals champ, 8-time All Defense, one of the few guards to win Depoy, and he is actually my next selection here because I really like the diversity of the skill sets. And if you're not going to be a team's number one option, you're not going to be the team's, maybe you are the team's number two, but you are a do everything all around player. I mean, he's got his 5-year or 3-year peak, 88 to 91, where he's averaging basically 23, 5.5 boards, 6 assists, and 3 steals. Like that is let me just do a bit of everything for you.
Yeah, 86. I mean, all the way to 92 even. You could stretch it out. It's like 16 points and 5 and 3 steals on top of that. He was actually my next pick as well. I liked I mean the defensive impact from the defensive from the guard position is just kind of rare to find. Rare to find in that sense. I mean 3.7 steals per game I believe is the highest total in the NBA. I think Don Boost had a 4 steal per game season in the ABA. But in
Hmm.
terms of NBA awards, I think it's about as high as it gets, and that's pretty impactful stuff.
I apologize. The stats I read, I missed it in my note. Those were his playoff stats from 88 to
Mm.
91. 23.5, 5.5
Okay, I do see
boards,
that.
6.2 is. Yeah, I was looking at his basketball reference page that I pulled it. I was like, that does not look right. But in the playoffs, just 3 series, first round exits each year. Um, but like, hey, 25, 6 and 6 with 3 steals, or 23, 6 and 6. Like, that's nice. It's really
No, for sure.
nice. It's to
On
have.
over 50% shooting. I think he does have like the worst playoff resume ever, and then I don't blame him like
It's not good.
necessarily.
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
He plays in 4 series and wins none of them, and he wins one playoff game. He's 1 in 12 in playoff games. Um, I respect it. I respect it. I think Alvin's is a great pick.
I'm glad you said so because like I had this run on shooting guards because I thought about Sabonis at 202 and I couldn't get there because of the next shooting guard. I was like, well, we got to have Sabonis behind Joe Johnson, and so if we're gonna have Joe Johnson above Sabonis, then we need to go for a run on these shooting guards. So if we lock in Alvin at 203, how do you feel about Joey Johnson,
And that was
the
also
ISO
my next
Joe?
player. I think we were just in lockstep here. When will it fall apart?
Maybe the guy after ISO Joe. We'll find out, but ISO Joe, 1,277 regular season games. Just the pinnacle of durability. The star level play was a lot shorter than I kind of remembered. Um, 7-time All Star, gets in the MVP conversation twice, but like, he's only really leading teams for a couple of years in Atlanta. He has his Phoenix Suns tenure where he's able to put up some good shots, but that was only 2 seasons. Uh, so bit shorter. What'd you like about him?
You said MVP conversation. That's a 12th and 15th place finish. I don't know if I'm gonna go that far. Um,
we're 200 guys deep. I don't, you
No,
know.
you could find better than that at this point. That's like one Atlanta beat writer tossing him a fifth place vote out of pity. I mean, the thing with Johnson is he's gonna get buckets. He has 20,000 points. It's him, Anton Jameson, and Tom Chambers in the 20,000 point club, but not a Hall of Famer. Um, he wasn't the best scorer in the league, but he was incredibly trusted at the end of games. And I think he got that kind of reputation for being this crazy big game player because I mean he has like some of the most game winners of all time. It's like Michael Jordan, Kobe, Joe Johnson, and he was really like that. I think he can get overrated. I mean, the 7 All-Star appearances make you think like he should be much higher, but you
Hmm.
got to focus on the one All NBA team. It's just one.
Hmm.
It's one third team All NBA. I think the best version of ISO Joe is like the 15th best player in the league. That's about as high as you get. Be very consistent, like top 30 player that played in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah. I mean, we always talk about like what could Clay have been if he was on his own team. And that's kind of what ISO Joe was. Like, if this guy could have been with other people, if he got to stick it out with Steve Nash, we're probably looking at a Clay Thompson level of career where
Mm.
he is really contributing to winning. But instead, he went out on his own. They tried to build around him as best you can, and he did fairly well. Uh, and you're picking on a 12th and 15th place finishes. Do you want to know what Reggie Miller's best finishes were? So we're looking at 13th and 16th.
It's yeah.
So,
Okay, but Joe Johnson scored. I think he scored 20 points per game in a playoff series, like 3 times.
yeah.
3 times, I think. Let me check. Fact checking time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, if you told me Joe Johnson never scored 22 points per game in a playoff series, I would have told you you're lying. But that's just true. And it's a different era and it's super slow. But what I feel about Joe Johnson is he should have been like the second guy behind like Kevin Garnett or Dwight
Sure.
Howard. And I think he's on these Atlanta teams that are like convinced that they're ready, that are just making moves like they're ready and like, no, we have like Josh Smith and ISO Joe, and let's get Mike Bibby and let's put all this together and like make a run. When Joe Johnson's not that kind of guy. Like Josh Smith wasn't that kind of guy, and they got good teams out of it, but it kind of made even in Brooklyn. Like he goes to Brooklyn, same story. Like we're gonna trade for Garnett, we're ready right now. Like we have all these pieces, and it's just like you're pretending that Joe Johnson is something that he's not. And he still is a very good player, but
Yeah. Yeah. But, hey, the longevity, the repertoire, like that's why he's here. I don't hate it. So that gets us down to 204 if you're
yeah.
comfortable. And then I'm looking at it again with fresh eyes. I wouldn't mind Sabonis over my next guy.
All right,
You
that
want to
sounds like a
lock in
great
Sabonis
placement.
at 205?
205 sounds great.
Perfect. Um, who's your next guy on the board? Been a while since you got to speak.
um, I have no problems. I had Kemba Walker. Kemba Walker out of the Hornets or the Bobcats in the beginning. Um, 19 points per game for his
Lockstep.
career. Very lockstep. That's good. 5 assists.
Yeah.
I felt like a huge part of this was like 2019 Kemba was awesome. He was so good. The 25 point a night with 6 assists, all 82 games, and that the Bobcats fell just short of the playoffs. But goddamn, he tried. I feel like I mean the thing with Kemba is he gets hurt, and when you're that tall at the point guard position, and you're a score first guard, you lose that half step, you lose a step and a half, and now you go from bad on defense to completely unplayable, and your offense isn't worth it anymore. And it just really sucked to see. But man, he's just a bucket. He was an absolute bucket in his prime.
And he played in one of the toughest point guard eras. Like,
Hmm.
coming into it, he has to deal with Chris Paul, Darren Williams. Those are already there. As he tries to ascend, he gets the takeoff of Steph Curry, of Russell Westbrook, the transition of James Harden into the point guard role. John Wall was still really good here. Like, what was that, 6, 7 point guards that I named that
Yeah.
played in his prime and were, maybe not in their exact primes, but very close to it, if not in it. Like, the fact that he gets the 4 All-Star appearances, the fact that he gets 1 All-NBA appearance in that hotly contested of a league, not even to speak of shooting guards really, but like those were just the point guards there.
Yeah, Dame,
Really,
Kyrie Irving. I'm looking at the
Dame,
2019
Kyrie, forgot.
All-NBA team. The first team was Harden and Steph for the guard position, and then Dame and Kyrie, and then Westbrook and Kemba. And he just edged out barely Bradley Beal and Klay Thompson, guys like Ben Simmons, Mike Conley. Um, yeah, I feel good about that.
Yeah, it's just such a brutal position. The next year, 2020, after he made it, the year afterwards, it's James Harden, Luka Doncic, Dame, Chris Paul, Ben
Man,
Simmons, Westbrook, Bradley Beal, Kyle Lowry, Trey Young, Donovan Mitchell, and then him in the voting. So like he got pushed way down. And it's like, hey, Curry's out this year. Westbrook, I guess Westbrook was 13, but like, man, it's just such a deep guard rotation. He was in there for a minute. And so 206 feels like a good spot for him.
who's your next guy? Back to you.
You know what? Let me just say real quick. This brings up on the point guard spot Lafayette Lever, good old fat Lever. And then after Domantas Sabonis, our next available center per the rankings was Joakim Noah. Just to keep people engaged on where
And
we're at
shooting
positionally.
guard. Shooting guard, we did Joe Johnson.
So now we have Phil Chenier.
Phil Chenier. Great,
Yeah.
great name, great player.
Great player. Got the great Jerry West quote about him. But my next nomination is going to be Dale Ellis, which Ellis,
Wow.
2 amazing seasons. Kind of the rest is a little bit more forgettable, but insane longevity again. You know, like Joe Johnson and shorter peak. I guess it is a 4-year stretch where he's in the 20 points per game, but then 1,209 regular season games. And I really, at this level, I either want the super high peak or I want the really great longevity. And he kind of gives me both.
He does. He totally does. In 89, makes his only All-Star appearance, all 82 games, 39 minutes a game at 27.5 points per game. Just a flamethrower from deep as well. 4.1 attempts per game at 48% from 3. And then you're getting him playing forever and ever until 2000, age 39. He's still averaging double digits in 1999. He was the OG 3-point record holder. It was him, and then
Mm-hmm.
Michael Adams took it for a second, and then back to Dale Ellis, and then that's where Reggie got it, and then Ray Allen, and then Steph. So, but it all starts with Dale Ellis, and he was my next guy as well. I promise we didn't talk about this prior.
Well, we did talk earlier, and we're like, I feel like we're gonna have similar lists because I think we've been doing this long enough and deep enough that we're kind of like, I know what the other person likes, but on that 3-point shooting note, he leads the league in 3-point percentage 1 time, second another time, top 5 a total of 5 times, if just percentage wise, top 10 a total of 7 times, top 20 13 times in his career. Like this man, really, you said flamethrower. That's the best way to describe him. He was just an unbelievable shooter for the 80s and 90s. And yeah, the volume is lower. He kind of, he's a top 10, top 3 in field goals made with sub 100 a couple of these years. But it's fine. It's the era.
Yeah,
That's what matters. Okay, cool. So
another note.
207.
Yeah, really quickly on Ellis, they met the um, Supersonics are a pretty good team throughout his time there. In 1987, they make the conference finals. They do get swept by the 87 Lakers, which that's one of the greatest teams ever. But in the first 2 rounds, he averages 29 points per game with 7 boards on 50, 40, 80 splits. That's great. That's why they win those first 2 playoff series. Is he just catches fire.
I thought I had a really cool moment here, but I was wrong. Uh, I was pulling up, just quick Googling, when did Ice Cube write the song It Was a Good Day, which is one of my favorite songs of all time. But it's got the lyric in there, the Lakers beat the Supersonics. And I thought it was when he was there, and it was not. It was a year after he had left the team. So just missed Dale Ellis with the Ice Cube reference. You're muted.
I'm muted. We've hit on all the positions except for power forward. Do you think Derek Coleman's feeling lonely?
He might be, and you know what? We will talk about him, but he's not my next guy. Is he your next guy?
No,
No. All right.
no, he's not.
Who's your next guy? We
My
break the
next
lock
guy,
step.
maybe it's shooting guard Phil Chenier.
Okay. I had one guy above Phil Chenier.
Who is that?
Let me hear your. My guy above him was Michael Finley.
Okay, I had Finley. I had Finley after him at 209. So we could see how we
So
feel.
basically, back and forth either way. Yeah.
I when we did Chenier's ranking for the shooting guard position, you had mentioned that he's basically Clay Thompson for the 70s Bullets. That's kind of his role. They had Wes Unseld, they had Elvin Hayes, but to space the floor and knock down these big shots was Phil Chenier.
Mm-hmm.
Averaging over 20 points per game in the 75 playoff run to get to the finals. And while they lose that finals, the Bullets are still just such a good team throughout the 70s that he has. I feel like I like his contributions to winning. And in that 75 playoff run in total is 24 points per game with 4 boards and 3 assists on 47% shooting. Then they really needed that to be such an elite team. That 75 team is I think up to 60 wins. Is that correct? Yeah, that's a
I'm
60.
gonna
It's a
say
60-win Bullets team, and he collects 3 All-Star appearances, and All-NBA team in 75, and he does win the 78 championship with them, but he's pretty banged up by that point. I like that 75 run. I feel like it was really important.
so. The 78 season, he gets hurt and does not play the entire playoffs. But the guy who took over the starting spot, Kevin Gervy, we'll call it Gervy, yeah, was quoted after, like immediately after they won, and they won in 7 games. Of like, how does it feel to beat the Sonics? And Gervy's response was, "If we had Phil, we would have swept them." Which it does kind of suck, and like that is kind of why I went for Finley over him, is because of that ultimate. He wasn't there when they needed him,
Hmm.
was hurt, didn't. We don't get to see him actually do it. Whereas Finley, yeah, it's in a decreased role, but we do finally get to see him be a starter for a championship team and be that versatile defensive player with the Spurs in '07. So that was kind of my like tiebreaker vote. Was Finley, I think, has a lot better longevity, not quite as high of a peak, but then in the contributions to winning department, he was actually there to able to contribute when his team won the title.
I think I'm in on Finley, honestly. Like going through Chenier, I gave the case, and it kind of just boiled down to just such a brief stretch in that one playoff run. I think of the Bullets as just, I guess, the Bullets make. I mean, they make 3 finals in the 70s, and he's only
Mm-hmm.
there for like 1.2 of those, basically. But what I really liked about Finley is the 3 minutes per game titles, because those Dallas teams are really good, and that speaks volumes to me. Where you have one of the better teams in the league, and they have Michael Finley out there all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Every game, 42 minutes a night. He's getting 20 points, 6 boards, 5 assists. He's versatile defensively, like you said. I like that, man. I mean, 34 minutes per game for his career, and on the '07 Spurs, he plays all 82 games. He's coming off the bench, but he's still finding a valuable place. And but those Dallas years are really good. Gets us to All-Star appearances, and is a constant.
I I was the guy that would buy like the new 2K or new NBA Live game like every third year. Like I was never the person that bought it every year. And that '04 Mavs team was him, Dirk Nowitzki, Antoine Walker, Steve Nash, Antoine Jameson, Josh Howard, and Sean Bradley, which
Hmm.
Bradley didn't play a ton, but in video games, Sean Bradley was fantastic. And like
Sure.
that team, I played so much with those guys because you had unlimited spacing and scoring, and like you put Dirk at the 5, you put Antoine Walker out there, and you're just going to make it rain. Walker did not do that in the real world, but he could in
Walker
video
was a
games.
good 3-point shooter. I made a video about him the other day. Pretty good, 34%, like 3 attempts per game. That '04 Mavs team is the best relative offense of all time. They
Well,
were
that
playing at just an absurd level, and Finley was out there for 42 minutes.
yeah,
Have 42 minutes of that? Is he still? Yeah, let me check on that.
that
Yeah,
that
38
04
minutes a game.
season, Antoine Walker was shooting 26.9% from three.
He would
So
go
on his,
on to shoot better.
on his career, he was a much better shooter. That was a bad year for him, but
Sure. He
all right.
hadn't developed yet.
So Finley 208, Chenier 209. Are you ready to discuss Derek Coleman at this point?
Maybe.
Maybe. Okay.
Maybe.
Okay. Good. It's a little bit too easy when we just agree on everything. Plus, then we end up talking about it for way too long. I mean, what, we're 35 minutes into recording this and we've only talked about 9 guys?
Dang, we gotta speed it up. I had one guy ahead of Coleman. I had one more guy, and it was our new small forward nomination, Rashard Lewis.
Okay. Interesting. I have him down at 225.
Really? Whoa, you didn't have a small forward for that long?
Yeah.
Wow, I think
No,
I had a couple more.
I don't plan to talk about small forwards or small forwards or point guards for a little bit. Which, to be fair, ranking out to 75 on each of these guys, um, we've had a lot more small forwards and point guards and centers than
Okay.
anything else. So I think there's a little bit more talent rich in the power forward and
Our
other, but
first big discrepancy. I have to sell Rashard Lewis. What I loved about
yeah,
Lewis is his skill set in terms of ball handling, in terms of floor spacing at his size was so malleable, and he was able to be effective in as the second guy on pretty good teams, and really effective as like the third player. In '05 on the Sonics, they're the second best offense in the entire league. They win 52 games, and Lewis is averaging 20 points per game right next to Ray Allen. And so you see, like, okay, if he's an all-star, can you be successful? And the answer is yeah. Are you frozen? He is frozen. All right, let's hang out for a second. Hey, welcome back.
hey, sorry, Wi-Fi cut out.
Hey, you're all good.
I did not hear any of your taste.
I didn't get too far into it.
All right, here's Richard
um,
case.
I have to sell you on Rashard Lewis. What I liked about Lewis is his versatility and his ability to be effective in multiple different roles. At like 6'10", his off the dribble scoring and his 3-point shooting was really valuable. For the '05 Sonics, he is an all-star, averaging 20 points a night on the second best offense in the league, and they win 52 games. He's kind of the second star next to Ray Allen. That was a really effective role. And then again, when he goes to Orlando, and he's definitely the guy behind Dwight, his floor spacing is so good. In the run to the finals that the Magic have, 2009, he's playing 41 minutes a night. He's 19 points per game and 6 boards, shooting almost 40% from three. He was the key for that Magic team to take the next step to be that finals contender, because you had Dwight, you had to surround him with shooters. The best one that could still give you that size, almost in the entire NBA, was Rashard Lewis. He spaced the floor beautifully, and he still had the height to not get eaten up at the fourth position. And that's my Rashard Lewis case.
I would push back. I would say he's guy number 3 behind what Hidu Turkoglu brought to that
Hito
team.
Turkoglu, my ass. What are you talking about? Hito
I'm talking
Turkoglu,
about
get out of
Hidu.
here.
What do you mean get out of here?
Hito
Okay,
Turkoglu.
2009. Rashard Lewis, 17.7 points per game, 5.7 boards. Hidu, 16.8 points, 5.3 boards, but assists. Hidu's at 5 assists. Rashard is at 2.6. It is Hidu getting in there, playmaking, passing, and that is really setting up the rest of this team
Who's
in
he
here.
setting
Rashard,
up? Who's he kicking out to? Rashard
he's get,
Lewis. He's kicking out to Rashard Lewis. That
he's
if that
also
was a
hitting Dwight with the lobs. He's
yeah,
Hidu
I
is
get that.
he was the master of this team, especially when Jameer Nelson goes down, and in the playoffs, you needed someone to be like
Hito Turkoglu.
the ball handler. It's not Rashard Lewis that's ball handling because Rashard Lewis cannot pass.
Sure, sure, he can't pass, but you get
There's
1,000 games. I mean, how long does Hito Turkoglu play? Not that we're
uh,
comparing these guys for the list, but just talking about Lewis, you get 1,000 games at 15 points a night. Um,
you get 1,000 games with 11 points a night.
yeah, he has like one season. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah, but that
was
one
he
season was in
was
Orlando.
was Hito an All Star in 2009? Or
He was
was it
not an All
Rashard?
Star in
It was so,
2009.
but it was Rashard Lewis.
Yeah, that's people have a scoring bias way too much. He do average like one fewer points, but was creating for this team. Come on.
I
Right.
don't buy it.
The thing that I felt like with Richard or was he could never really do much. Like he was fully dependent on being set up by other guys. And like those Sonics teams, the 06, 07 teams after his good 05 run, you tried to turn it over to him and it it was pretty bad. And then he has that brief time in Orlando where he's getting set up by Hidu and gets to play off of Dwight, and that's an awesome role for him. That's a great third man in here. That's why we have a Kyle Kuzma in the league, or why we, you know, have other or
I hate
third
Kyle Kuzma.
options.
That's I think with the modern NBA, like we've talked about, like because it's so star heavy, your third
Hmm.
options are kind of bad, and so it's like, yeah, he's the third guy. It's like, well, third guy used to be good. Like the third guy on teams used to be good. Now it's like Danny Green. Danny Green's like your third star.
Well, and Kuzma, because of the inflation of offense, Kuzma is just going to have a better career or averages and whatnot. Like, I don't know if he'll ever get to the longevity of Rashard Lewis, but like, if he plays another 10 seasons or so
Is
and has close to that longevity, we'll do side by sides of their numbers, and Kuzma's
yeah.
numbers are going to blow Rashard out of the water, and it
Is
nowhere near the
Kuzma ever
effect.
gonna make an All Star team?
Are the Wizards going to win 5 games? I mean,
That's
oh,
I don't think so. I don't think either of those things are true. Um,
I forgot to tell you, and I want to get your reaction live to this, even though it'll be long before this matters and I can get this edited. Um, our team of the week for our
oh
normal
yeah.
weekly Sunday pod, Philadelphia 76ers. You want to know
Okay.
who they're playing this week?
Is it us?
They're playing the Wizards
Oh,
tonight.
yeah. That's right.
Then they
What's
then they play the Pistons, and then they play the Pistons again, and then they have a back to back after that Pistons game with Charlotte Hornets.
oh man.
Have fun watching those games.
My
Um,
goodness.
all right, the longevity is a factor that I hadn't quite considered as much. I too high, too. We can
Man.
work him
Yeah.
down. I do
Fine.
also just want to say he is currently the Pistons big man coach. So I'm not holding beef stew against his playing record, but I'm not holding James Wiseman's lack of development against his playing record. Not holding Marvin Bagley's development against his playing record, but just think it needs to be said. It
Wiseman's
needs to be,
starting tonight. Isn't Bagley out? James Wiseman at
Duran's
what?
out.
Yeah, but
I
Bagley's
don't know if
also out.
Bagley's also out.
Bagley
God,
was doubtful this morning. I think they're playing the Pacers. I gotta watch James Wiseman try to guard the Pacers.
they have back to back games against Joel Embiid coming up back to back.
That's not good. I'll have to tune into that.
Dylan's question was, could Embiid get 200 points this week over those 4 games? I don't think he's gonna need to. Like I think it's
I think he's
possible,
gonna
but
play 4 total quarters. I don't think he's gonna. I think he's gonna play 1 game in total.
yeah. All right. So I had Derek Coleman here. And my case for Coleman was just the absolute peak where he came in and he was a problem. He was a guy that you built your team around for a 4 or 5 year period before he ballooned up in weight. But there was a serious time where it looked like he was going to join the ranks of the rising power forward era of Karl Malone, of Charles Barkley, of Sean and Kemp, and I wouldn't even say joined. He was there. He was 2010 with 3.5 assists just for basically this 5 year stretch, but then got injured, got fat, and really fell off strong. And is kind of 90s DeMarcus Cousins. But we have DeMarcus Cousins higher than this.
Gotta fix that. Gotta fix that. I don't know what the fuck are we thinking. That was a huge mistake.
I believe you said, and I quote, he was really talented. He was good.
Yeah, that's true.
Played with
I
terrible
said some I
people.
said some dumb shit like that. Yeah, that was a huge mistake. We have him like above Rajon Rondo. That's just ridiculous. What is wrong
Yeah.
with me?
You put him above of Rasheed Wallace.
Rasheed Wallace is like, where did I have Rasheed Wallace? Not in this episode. Maybe in the next one.
Yeah. Yeah.
All
But
right.
if we're gonna have him there, I think we need to have Coleman up here too.
Do you want to adjust that right now?
No. No,
Yeah.
we're 45 minutes in.
I
We've only gotten
don't
through
know
9
why.
guys.
I don't know why it's taking so long. I feel like we're like a bit in lockstep. We have a lot to say.
Yeah.
I did have Derek Coleman, and I think he has his first 4 seasons in the playoffs. He's like 25, 13, and 5. And he's oh, you're frozen again. Hey, is that me? Is that
Hey.
you?
I think it's me.
Whose fault is this? This is ridiculous. Someone's at fault. um,
I don't know.
I was just saying that Derek Coleman was my next guy. Comes into the league before he balloons up. He is this crazy guy. He's like super athletic, physical, strong, left-handed presence. Um, and he was reported to basically not give a shit. That's kind of the issue. And I'd seen some article from quite some time ago that basically said like he could have been Duncan if he cared, but he just cared so little. And he kind of rubbed coaches the wrong way because he was reported that he would get his and then kind of check out. But the thing is, if getting his is 25 and 15, then it's a little okay. Like I'm okay with that as long as he's getting it. Because
Yeah.
some people can't get that.
I think when we did the Power Forward pod, you pointed out that his 94 playoffs was 25, 15 in boards. His 93 playoffs, 27, 13 boards with almost like 4.5 assists, like and 2.5 blocks. That that's superstar shit. And I don't
Yeah.
think Bouchard was ever near that level.
Yeah. I fell in love with a 3 and D role player. I'm sorry.
Well,
I
to be
got wrapped
fair,
up in the system and yeah, I was
to
blinded.
be fair, my next guy is the role player, and it's the next power forward on the list. Buck Williams, 3-time him All Star, 1-time All NBA, 4-time All Defense, member of 2 finals teams,
2 of
and
them?
yeah, he was there in
Yeah.
Portland in 90 and 92.
Yeah.
Also, the year in
I
between
was
91 where they go pretty deep.
I was just accentuating your point of 2 finals.
Ah,
He
Uh,
was my next guy as well, so we're doing great. I felt like
all right.
it's like when like Coleman comes in. They both start with the Nets. Coleman comes in, he dominates, and then he kind of gets fat and doesn't dominate anymore. With Buck Williams, he comes in, immediate All Star, is All NBA in his second season. He's this 15-point a game with 12 boards, like, owns the rebounding, um, owns the glass is what I meant to say, and is a really solid defender. And he gets the Nets from some 20-win team to kind of frisky with the playoffs, which is really hard to do in New Jersey. And then he transitions, instead of getting fat, he stays in shape and transitions to this like really awesome defensive minded power forward for really great Blazers teams. And I like that.
Yeah. Career 120 win shares. No one we're going to discuss today is that high, has that much contributions, both at the high end and then over the longevity span. Like, gosh, what was we talked about Joe Johnson earlier. Pull up his for comparison, win shares wise. He was at 82 win shares. Rashard Lewis is at 90. So like
Yeah.
just up there. But the fact that Buck in a shorter time, well, actually not a short time frame, 1,307 games, really long time frame, if I guess I should say. But high effort, defends, rebounds, not really a passer or shooter, but just a prototypical power forward of the late 80s and 90s.
He's 17th all time in rebounds. And he's kind of like, in my head, he's kind of like the Blazers version of Andre Iguodala for the Warriors, where they had
Mm,
this kind of young upstart team, and it's like getting frisky with Clyde and Steph Curry or something, and then you bring in this like heavy-handed veteran that does the dirty work, and that makes you a legitimate contender. And yeah, that's what I saw.
I actually like that because then you also kind of have the parallel with Kevin Duckworth and Andrew Bogut. That
Yeah,
that kind of works. That
thank you.
I like it. You know. All right. So if we put him in at 211, um, any chance you got some Larry Kenon love?
That's it, man. Man, that's right.
Keon,
Yeah, that's who I
then
had.
uh, ABA to NBA, a conversion guy. Gets the championship up in the ABA as I put down the third guy behind Billy Pulitz and Julius Irving. I think we debated that a little bit. He had an 11 steal game, which I just think is a really fun kind of tidbit for him, but super fast, would ignite the fast break or could run the break with anyone. His 1979 season, 22 points per game, basically 10 boards with 4 assists and 2 steals as a power forward. So like he's either getting a steal or getting the board and then pushing the tempo. And it's not just let me run and dunk on the other end, but he can also make the play and find the guy. And I just think that's a really fun type of guy to have.
And he makes that transition from the ABA to the NBA, and
Hmm.
so many players aren't able to do that. I think he's a great example of that. A lot of those ABA guys, they make the transition. They're like 28, and then they're 20. They're heading into their 30s and the 70s. That's ancient. But Keon was very young. His first year in the NBA was age 24, and he's just automatic All Star in 78, then 79. Still had that ability and pretty unique. Gets his title in the ABA. I think that was my next guy, and I feel great about it.
Yeah. One of the other things about making that transition from the ABA to the NBA that really helped is that he stuck with one of the ABA franchises, or he was able to stay with the franchise. The Spurs had a ton of money for that era. Um, whereas a lot of these guys, like, they jump, or there's only a couple of ABA franchises that make it over. So then, you're playing on a new system with a new team that already has established guys. Like it just it was a rougher transition for a lot of them, and he was in a good position and took full advantage of it. Who else do you have? Because I'm willing to push Richard down as far as you'll let me push him.
Just one sec. Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay, just one second. I'm gonna adjust my list. Yeah. Okay. So at the shooting guard position, we got Phil Shinarian a bit ago, and his
Hmm.
replacement is Andrew Toney, Sixers legend Andrew Toney. And then we got Michael Finley, and his replacement is Meta World Peace, correct?
His replacement was Rashard Lewis.
Was Richard Lewis, and then Peace after that. Okay. Was Richard Lewis, yeah. Okay. And then Fat Lever for the point guards.
Sorry, I
Power
started
forward.
laughing because I thought you were going to make the case for Andrew Toney right there, and Andrew Toney was my next guy up, and I was like, are we seriously going to continue this?
Let me see where I had Tony. I had I had small forwards ahead of Tony, and so it's like I don't know how I feel about that. Um,
Okay,
I guess I liked Meta World Peace and I liked Deadlift Shrimp and I wanted to get him in there. But maybe you have to maybe wait a little bit. That's totally fine. Because I do love some Andrew Toney, the Boston Strangler. Do you want to make your case?
no, I mean you had the passion for him, and last time around, I will let you make that case.
Um, Tony is just incredible for just these 2 seasons. It's 83 and 84, a little bit of 85, a little bit of 82, but really those 2 All-Star seasons and is a part of the 83 Sixers, just one of the 5 greatest teams of all time. In the 83 finals, he puts 22 points and 2 boards and 5 assists on the Lakers' head in a sweep. In the series before that, it's basically the same. In the 82 finals against the Lakers, they lose that one, but he's 26 points a night and 8 assists per game. And of course, the Boston Strangler, huge games in the playoffs versus Boston. And that's really like the Sixers, the Eastern Conference is such a bloodbath. Like the Lakers kind of get to walk the Lakers kind of get to walk to the finals, which is fine because if you still win the finals, you're the best team in the league. Um, but the Sixers and the Celtics went at each other year after year after year, and it's Tony that gets the Sixers over the edge a couple times. I felt like I do feel like it's a little too early, given he plays in less than 500 games. But do you have something to push it
That's
back over
fair.
the edge?
No. Defeating the 82 through Celtics, I really liked it. It's the game 7, dropping 34 points on 14 for 23 shooting. Like he was big in big moments. Yes, he does kind of shoot them out of game 6, going 1 for 11. Maybe I was just too high on Tony. Um,
And Barkley said he was the best player he ever played with.
and Barkley played with Moses Malone, Julius Irving, Kevin Johnson, Hakeem Olajuwon. Like Barkley played with guys.
Yeah, you think he'd say Scottie Pippen? I don't think Barkley would suggest him. Pippen was good. Pippen was good. He was
Yeah,
better than people gave him credit for in Houston.
but also in that time frame, that was like tail end of Pippen being good and Barkley and Pippen beefed. So no, Barkley would never say that. All right, so if we're not in on Tony, we're not in on Lewis. Who can we find some common ground with,
Um,
or are you just putting the foot down and saying this is where Richard needs to be?
I feel like that's where Richard needs to be because at this point we're
Okay.
gonna be doubling up. I mean, we can do my next guy that doesn't require other guys we put down is Fat Lever, who's very good, 2-time All Star, 1-time All NBA player. Is 14.6 boards, 6 assists. Has some crazy rebounding seasons. Like in 1990, he's 18 points and 9 boards and 6.5 assists. Um, the Denver makes the conference finals with him there, and has averages a triple double in the 85 second round, and that's pretty cool stuff. Do you want to do him, and then we can try to flush out some of these small forwards?
You know what? Let's take Richard or
Okay,
Lewis first. I did have
you're
Fat over
13.
Richard, but I'm not as passionate about that.
Yeah. So with that, our next small forward is Mineral Peace. Are you interested?
I, I like Meta
Yeah. Well, Lakers stuff. He was my next guy. Great
a
defensive
little.
role player. Has the defensive player of the year season. Got the Kings to the playoffs. Made an All NBA team.
Also, I mean, we talked about it already, but the Indiana Pacers team was supposed to be a title team. Yes, they're not a title team because Meta World Peace happened, because he ran into the stands. But also he missed games
Because
earlier
Ben
that
Wallace
season
punched
promoting his
him.
rap.
Like,
Yes.
it's like, I don't
And
know.
someone
Like,
chucked a beer
yeah,
at
but
him,
someone
and
chucked a beer at him. Ben Wallace fouled him way too hard. It's Ben Wallace's fault. I'm
no,
sorry.
he fouled Ben Wallace.
Ah, shit. I'm sorry.
He
So he
he
fouled
fouled
Wall. Okay.
he
All
fouled
right.
Wallace. Wallace turns around, chokes him.
Okay.
Uh, he
Maybe that's what I had thought of, where it's like, why the fuck did Ben Wallace like attack him after, like, dude, the game
yeah.
is over.
Yeah.
I'm
Also, it
sorry,
was like
Ben.
3 days after Ben Wallace's brother had died. So like,
Whoa.
there. Yeah.
All right.
I think.
Okay. There's some extra circumstances I wasn't aware of.
Yeah.
I'll take it back.
Yeah. I remember watching that game live, and I remember the foul happening and being like, that's gonna shoot free throws. I turned away and like flipped to another channel, watched a different game, and then they were like breaking news out of Detroit, and I'm like, what on earth could like happen in Detroit? This game was over. It was a hard foul. Like, cool. We got a scuffle. And then they started showing it. I was like, oh my god! I turned away at just the wrong
Man,
moment.
that's
Um,
that's
but like Bennett was supposed to be in the MVP conversation that year. He was an elite two-way player, and like never gets back up to those levels after that season. But the '04 year, he was just so good on both ends. All uh, first team all defense, third team all NBA. He like
and they make the
if we're
conference
gonna
finals. They make the
they,
conference finals. Like, it's a
they
really good team.
do. Yeah,
Put him
who
in.
took him out? Who took him out that year? It was Detroit. Okay, makes sense.
Yeah.
Detroit won the championship. But yeah, all right. So if we put him in, did you have Detlef Shrimp as your next guy right after him, or
I did, yeah.
really you just went on this run of small forwards?
I tend to get in that habit. I don't know. Like, I feel like I liked Metta World Peace. He got up to an All NBA level. He won Defensive Player of the Year. That team made the conference finals, and then he transitions into the role player and like helps the Rockets win a playoff series after they couldn't for the longest time, and helps the Lakers win 2 championships. But for Detlef, you're getting um the 3 All-Star seasons and an All-NBA level, and just dude played forever. He played for so long. From 86 to '01, age 23 to 38, over 1,100 games of 14 points a night, and he just has, like, 93, it's 19 points, 9 boards, and 6 assists, or 95, it's 19 points, 6 boards, and 4 assists. He's this, like, ever so versatile offensive nightmare for mismatches. And I feel like you saw what he could do as like the second guy with Reggie Miller, and those teams are just okay. But then it's him and like Gary Payton and Sean Kemp, and those Sonics teams were so good. And I feel like having him there as kind of the offensive wild card helped them go straight to the finals and 60 win teams.
I'll take it. I'll
All right.
buy it. Didn't have him this high initially, just because I was also kind of pushing Rashard Lewis down. But if we're gonna break the Rashard Lewis seal,
Mhm.
I'm fine with it. Um, could I maybe interest you in pushing Andrew Toney back if we're
Sure.
not gonna put him up here? Because I
He was my next guy at this point.
oh, he is your next guy? Okay.
Yeah, if you wanted to do it was him, and then I had Beal, the next shooting guard.
That's what I was gonna say. Is maybe we underrated Beal a little bit, which is a hard thing to say right now where he's played just 3 games this year. Um,
We were fine. We're fine. I don't care.
all right, fine. A lot of those high scoring years, the 30 win or the 30 points per game seasons were on non-playoff or Russell Westbrook got you to the playoff team, like
Yeah.
34 and 38 team, 25 and 47 teams, both kind of shortened seasons. So, um, yeah, it's impressive numbers. It did not matter too much.
Andrew Toney averaged 20 plus points in 2 finals. I'm not gonna have that conversation yet.
Okay, but if Bradley Beal got to play with Moses Malone and Julius Irving, I think he could average 20 points in the finals.
Well, that's why he's the next guy. That's why
Yeah.
he's the next guy, and that's fine. But just in terms of like, you got to do something at some point. You can't just be talented.
Okay. Fair enough. Can I offer you someone that's not talented but did something?
Sure. That's what
Terrible segue into Joakim Noah.
Okay.
Just heart, hustle. A lot of these guys had really great longevity. Talking about Shrimp, talking about Buck Williams, whatnot. I think we're kind of moving away from some of that really good longevity with Andrew Toney getting off the board. Our next shooting guard now that we've gotten Bradley Beal off the board is Brandon Roy. Joakim Noah, also not a lot of longevity, but what he did in that shortened span where Chicago is just an unstoppable team, people give a lot of that credit to Rose, who's getting the MVP, but they're first in defense, second in defense, sixth in defense, and then second in defense. Sorry, yeah, a little bit of a hiccup in there, but like that's three top two defensive rating finishes in a 4-year span, and that is in large part Joakim Noah.
Yeah. I mean, I actually didn't have him in the top 25. I could, it was so brief, but I do think you're right. I think I was probably too low on him. I got kind of caught up in like the 2014 MVP voting. He is fourth,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like a who gives a shit fourth because LeBron wins it by like LeBron gets like 98% of the votes, and so after that, I mean, yeah, give who like if it doesn't matter, why not give Joakim Noah a vote? Like, why not? Yeah, him and 16 other people got 0 first place votes that season.
Yeah,
It's
but
just not as strong, but he's still first team All NBA, and I'll give him that. That's why we're having that conversation. Um, I feel like I like if I had to pick the no longevity guys, I think I'd rather have Brandon Roy.
okay. Did you have someone else? Or
Yeah, I
who's
had
your
like
next guy
15
up? Who's your
people.
218?
The Fat
Hey,
Lever.
I had quite a few guys before, or Shrimp, but
Yeah.
yeah, you gave a passionate case, and all of these guys are really so close that, eh,
I had
eh.
Fat Lever next. I felt like is from we'll go 85 to 90. You get about 6 years there of 17 points, 7.5 boards, 7.5 assists. The Nuggets are pretty good. Nuggets are a pretty solid team. Um, it's basically purely a statistical argument, but he's also all defense at some point. So he's giving that kind of production as well. Something I do want to note, like as we go through this, you're gonna start to see archetypes of players that don't exist anymore. And while Fat Lever is actually more of a modern point guard, like we're gonna get to guys where like Mark Jackson in a couple years when we get to him. Um the the pass first defensive oriented or a Maurice Cheeks, like a Mo Cheeks kind of guy. Those guys don't exist anymore. Like the guards on teams get buckets now. That's just how the game is played. And it used to be like more kind of a team oriented, like our point guard distributes and then finds the open man and then pesters the other team's best ball handler. So it is interesting seeing like we're gonna talk about Carlos Boozer. That guy is never coming back. Like we'll never see a Booze Cruise player again. So just something to think about.
I think we will, but we'll talk about him in a minute. And I think he might be selling Fat a little bit short here, because he is a kind of a do everything guard. From 87 to 90, 19 points, 9 boards, seven and a
Mm,
half assists. That is
man,
like the rebounding numbers for Fat Lever are really quite surprising. When what is he like 6'2", 6'3"?
6'3".
As a point guard, that's kind of almost Russell Westbrook again.
Two
Especially
and a
as the
half
league is,
steals.
yeah,
Totally
as the
left
league is
that out.
starting to slow down. Um, it is a very weak playoff resume. Uh, Not much success, but I do want to say they were having success one of the years. I forget
It's
it's
better than Bradley
86 or
Beal.
85.
It's fine. He plays in 13 playoff series and wins 5 of them. He's 12 points, 6 boards, 6 assists in those playoff series.
Is it?
His
He only
career
made the
playoff
second
numbers.
round.
He makes it.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm seeing where I went wrong here. All right. Which is the year that he gets hurt? Is it
85.
86? 85.
Pretty
is
sure. I mean,
where,
the numbers would suggest that he goes from 17 points, 11 boards, 10 assists in 33 minutes to 9, 4, and 5 on 21 minutes. I feel like something happened there.
yeah. Uh, I think it was, I don't know. He got hurt, or when the team was having a fair amount of success. They did continue to win. They win in that Utah series is without him, but still, we could have gotten better from him. We could have seen more of him. So it's not like the lack of playing on winning teams or the lack of contributions to winning are like he wasn't good enough to get there. It's not like
Mm.
it's not like a fault of his where they played him a ton and the team just sucked because he was out there. It's he was hurt. All right, we'll lock him in 218 for
Yep.
Fat Lever.
The next point guard is Mo Cheeks.
I got Terry Porter next.
The next point guard is Terry Porter.
All right, I was like, "Where's Mo?" Okay, Mo is 48
That's
in
what I
our
meant
point
to
guard
say.
list. It's Terry Porter. I think I flip flopped them when we were talking about them in the point guards because they're just very similar archetypes of very steady guys. Are you wanting to make a case for Terry Porter at this point? My current nomination is Joakim Noah, and I do actually, unfortunately, the next guy I have after him would be Karl Anthony Towns. So I am,
Karl Anthony Towns. Holy shit.
yeah.
That's insane. Okay, yeah, Terry Porter. I had Brandon Roy, but I think I'd like to go Porter over Roy. Um,
Ooh.
in the 90, 91, 92 deep playoff runs, 2 finals runs for the Blazers, he is 20 points and 7 assists per game on almost 50% shooting. He is so crucial to those playoff runs. It's really just awesome. And then he plays in 1,200 games from for 17 years, from 86 to 02. That's a ton of longevity, and at his peak, he's giving really high level basketball to finals teams. You want to do him?
Hmm. Yeah, it's kind of funny because we've talked about a lot of those Blazers from those runs because it's Clyde Drexler as the main guy, but then it is Buck Williams, it is this Terry Porter. God, I cannot think of the small forward's name right now. Jerome Kersey and Kevin Duckworth, and like they are a team. They are a 5-man unit, and basically whenever you pull off one of those guys, the team just would fall apart entirely. And I rewatched the 90 finals over the off season, and whenever Porter was out of the game, the team just struggled so much. I really like having Terry Porter in this spot.
Sounds great. Lock him in.
Locked him in.
Is it
All right,
Brandon Roy
I
time?
I will accept either Roy, Joakim Noah, or Carlos Boozer at this point.
Let's do Roy and then Noah.
All right, Roy. I think you're right. I did actually also have him above Terry Porter coming into this day. But with Brandon Roy, it's so short, and so much of what we're talking about is what could have been and where he could have gone. It is it's 326 regular season games. Still a 3-time All Star, still a 2-time All NBA player. Although I do think the guards were a bit weaker in that era. You know, Kemba Walker did not have the luxury of playing in this NBA. He
Yeah,
probably
in
picked up a few
09.
more.
In 09, he's ahead of like Billups and Tony Parker and those kind of guys.
Yeah,
Those are
yeah.
good players.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Just
'09 and Billups was his first year in Denver and got them to the Western Conference Finals. Also, like that's one of my favorite Billups years. It's fair. It's just not like he's not dealing with the depths of Curry and Lillard and Kyrie
no.
and all of the other people for contention on these award or selections. But hey, he gets 3 amazing years before injury just rips him away from us. And I refuse to acknowledge those 5 Minnesota games because they were uh, really sad to watch and really hard to watch. But '07 to 2010, 21 points, 5 assists, 4.5 boards per game. Yeah, I think the longevity is just too little to put him ahead of Terry Porter, especially just all-time Blazers talk, but what he could have been. What?
I have my top 10 players each season for my stats model. In
Mm,
2009, Brandon Roy comes in seventh. Seventh place, behind Pau Gasol and right ahead of Dirk Nowitzki. Um,
yeah.
in 2014, Joakim Noah was 11th. So you get similar cases, but I'd like to take Roy first. Okay.
All right. So Roy in 2020, Joakim Noah 2021. That means we have 4 spots left. I'm not walking out of here without Carlos Boozer, without Eddie Jones. You might be able to push me back on Karl Anthony Towns. I do just think like we don't have many
My
guys left that
goodness.
were number ones. We
Yeah,
just don't.
okay. Yeah, no,
It
sure.
wasn't a
Okay.
great number
We'll
one,
talk.
but like
It was a terrible number one. It was horrible. Those Minnesota teams are horrible. Okay. I had so the next point guard is Mo Cheeks.
nope.
Come on.
James Silas.
Oh man, you're right. It is Silas.
I don't know.
Where did I have Silas? Oh, I
I
had
don't know
Silas.
where you had Silas.
Silas. James
Are,
Silas. Man, I, I don't know. Yeah, I guess I had that mixed up. We had moved Silas around a little bit over text, and I think he's got shuffled. Um. Okay. All right.
did I not update
I'm
Silas right?
no. I
I
think
probably didn't
what
update him if we had moved him around over text, but
let me see.
come on, you can't really want Mo Cheeks in this level. He'll
No,
be
but
starting next pod. We're not talking about another point guard today.
I had, yeah, no, you're right. It's Silas. Okay. Silas is there and
Yeah,
then it's Cheeks. Okay. So
we're not
there's
we're not
there's
discussing
one
point guards. We're not discussing small forwards the rest of today. It's centers, power forwards, shooting guards.
that's not true. There's a point guard. No, I'm not leaving out. I'm not leaving. Not leaving here. I'm not leaving here without Gene Shu. Gene Shu's coming with me.
Where, where the hell is Gene Shue?
You might have to fit in some point guards. Nah. There's too many point guards to fit in. I just wanted him.
There's so many. He has 3 point guards back. We're not.
Yeah, I know. I just we haven't had a single 50s player yet. I feel like it's due. But okay. I have Eddie Jones in.
Talk Bobby Wanzer.
Wanzer. I have Gene Shu. Or I sorry. Ah. We have 4 spots. I have Eddie Jones. And I have Carlos Boozer. So let's get those two
Okay.
guys in.
Did you have Boozer over Jones or Jones over or
I had
Booze?
Jones over Boozer.
I knew you would. Did I lose you? Nope. There you are. All right. My case for Boozer over Jones is just being the 20 and 10 guy, the continuation of the Jerry Sloan forever pick and roll, well, and just being able to spam that, gets the Western Conference Finals. Was it in? Was it 07? As a 23.5 points per game and 12 boards for this type of guy. The playoffs from 07 to 10, 20 points, 12 and a half boards. Just a reliable, consistent, strong screen setter that really paired super nicely with Darren Williams because he'd get the hard screen. You had to go under it. Williams was not a great shooter, but if you went over it, he was just going to barrel chestfully go through guys. And I think that screen setting, that pick and roll ability, and that finishing at the rim over a 4-season stretch is better than anything we saw Eddie Jones put up.
I think that's fair. I think he molds to the era and fits it perfectly. The bruising power forward. So we'll do Boozer at where is he? 223?
Boozer,
222?
Boozer
Jones.
222, Jones 223.
So we have Silas at the point guard position, Bobby Wanzer, Cincinnati Royals legend, at the shooting guard
Yep.
position, Glenn Robinson, big dog at small forward. If Boozer's gone, then it's Rudy Tomjanovich, and the center is Karl Anthony Towns. So Bobby Wanzer,
All right,
five-time
you got to
All-Star,
go. Would be 7 if
three-time
the
All-Star.
award had
Sorry.
been 5-time All-Star, but the
Yeah,
award
sorry.
didn't exist for a couple of the years when he was in the league. Where
Mhm.
if it did, he was All NBA those years because that existed, but All Star didn't. No, he didn't become All NBA till later. I
But
still
you
think
could
he's
make the
probably an All
case.
Star.
Could be more. Say
Yeah,
5, we'll say five-time All-Star, three-time All-NBA as it stands. Um, 7 appearances in the top 20 for assists per game, 3 in the top 10 for points per game, and he was very efficient as well. With in 1952, he was 4th in field goal percentage, and this is a shooting guard.
yeah. Uh, 6 or 5. Ah, 4 top 6 finishes in true shooting. You know, is arguably the third guy on the Royals championship roster. Um, in 52, but just early NBA BAA player. True shooting added of 750. Really efficient shooter scorer for the era. Has a 90% free throw shooting season back in the 50s, which um, the whole court was very different. The ball that they played with was a different material. It had lumps in it. It had like a football style arch stitching in it that made it bounce weird. So getting 90% from a free throw line one season is really wild. Like I wonder how many years it took someone else to get that. I probably could look that up without too much effort, but um, that just that's really wild in my mind to shoot that well back then.
Oh, of course.
That that leaves us one last position. And if you really don't want to do Carl Anthony Towns, I will offer you up someone who you may be more interested in.
What do you got?
I got Rudy Tomjanovich.
Yes, that's who I was gonna make a case for. That's fantastic. 225 is Rudy Tomjanovich. Go ahead, please.
Victim of John Feinstein's The Punch Book, gets just absolutely clocked by Big Kermit Washington, and unfortunately, that's all most people know about him. But what we do have from 73 to 78, he has 20 points per game or 21 points, basically 9 boards. It's him and oh gosh, Calvin Murphy? It's
Calvin
Calvin.
Murphy, yeah.
Calvin Murphy. Like you said, NBA Mad Libs. Leading a bad Rockets team, but they still make the playoffs a couple of those years in 75 and 77. And
77, then we would win 49 games, make the conference finals. And that's like super young Moses Malone plus Murphy plus Tomjanovich. Tomjanovich leads that team in scoring. And I think the thing with like Towns is, can he play well in the playoffs one time? And I want to see that first. I just want to see it in practice.
you didn't think he played well against Denver in this last season?
He was fine. He was fine. I mean, yeah, he was
He
fine.
struggled to shoot a lot, but
Well, he came in like he was like 20-8, and then he left 18-10. It's like 46% shooting, and the 3-point shot wasn't there. And like the idea of Towns has not translated. And I think right now you're looking at him as the third best guy on like a contending team. I think that's his spot. Um, where I mean, I guess Tom Donovan should probably be the same thing. And that's why we're having the conversation. But
yeah, I think they're very similar players. They put up really good numbers on teams that didn't get that far. They had the occasional playoff appearance. Um, you know,
Tomjanovich made a conference finals, and like that's that's something, right? I mean, that's a huge, that's way closer than Towns has ever gotten. Um,
it was the 77 conference finals. It was,
the
yeah,
league merged. It was the merges, like everyone was right there, and I mean they went head to head, and I mean handled the 77 bullets, and that's Phil Chenier who already ranked, and Elvin Hayes. Uh, Elvin
Mitch
Hayes given
Kupchak,
20 and 12, and Tomjanovich. Yeah, Mitch Kupchak skipped right over him.
Wes
All right.
Unseld is on that team. All right, yeah. I think Tom. Tomjanovich is the guy. I don't think there's that big of a difference between him and Karl Anthony Towns at this point, but
The vibes are better with Tomjanovich.
vibes are better, and getting Tomjanovich off the board allows us to put Pascal Siakam as our next power forward. And I do think if we're just looking modern guy to modern guy, yeah, I'd probably take Pascal over Karl. So, all right, you talked me into it. Our 201 through 225. You want me to do it? You want to do it?
I got it. 201 is Jermaine O'Neal, Rolando Blackman, Alvin Robertson, Joe Johnson, Demonis Sabonis, Kemba Walker, Dale Ellis, Michael Finley, Phil Chenier. 210 is Derek Coleman, Buck Williams, Larry Keenan, Rashard Lewis, Meta World Peace, Detlef Schrempf, Andrew Toney, Bradley Beal, Fat Lever, Terry Porter. 220 is Brandon Roy, Joakim Noah, Eddie Jones, Carlos Boozer, Bobby Wanzer, and finally at 225 is Rudy Tomjanovich.
Sorry, can you 222
Did I miss 222? Eddie Jones?
and 223?
Ooh, I forgot to flip those.
Yeah.
I forgot to flip them. You want me to read it again?
No. No, it's fine.
All right. Carlos Boozer is 222. Jones is 223. Yes.
Perfect. All right. Aaron, where can the people find you?
Possible Chairs on TikTok and this podcast all the time.
Find me, Nate_HoopsTemple on TikTok. Also email us, hoopstemple@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Have a great one.